It's playoff time at the Sinquefield Cup 2025. Three players have finished at the same score after classical time control. We have Praggnanandhaa, Fabiano Caruana and Wesley So, all of them scoring 5.5 out of 9. It's now time to break this tie. And in order to do that, they're going to indulge in Blitz chess. Pragg will play against both the opponents. It's going to be round robin, and the player who manages to score most number of points will emerge victorious at the end of this. It's the first game of this tiebreak between Praggnanandhaa and Fabiano Caruana, and it'll be interesting to see how this pans out. Pragg has the white pieces. It's 5 minutes plus 2 seconds increment. The players are ready, a handshake, and off we go. E4, E5, knight comes out to F3, knight C6, and Pragg plays the Italian. The bishop comes out on C5, pawn to D3 played. He plays pawn to D6, opening up his bishop here. C3 played, and now the knight comes out to F6. Pragg quickly castles here. H6, stopping all bishop G5 ideas. And he goes knight to D2 and A5, gaining space on the queen side. Pragg goes back with the bishop to B3, and black quickly castles here. Pawn to H3 played, all very standard normal stuff to play rook E1, taking G4 square under control. And B5, slightly offbeat but very logical, gaining space on the queen side. Rook E1, A4, and the bishop drops back to C2. Now white's position might look a bit passive, but guys, white wants to go D4 and he's angling for it. So Pragg takes a bit of time and plays his knight to F1, now preparing D4. Maybe black is already ready to strike with D5 in the center even before white is able to strike with D4. Will Fabi do it? Is the question. He takes his time. I'm pretty sure he's evaluating this option of playing D5 because it's the most direct way to combat the move D4. The other option, of course, is to drop the bishop back to B6. That's what he does. Bishop B6. And now if D4, you can get into the concrete mode stuff. And Pragg plays it, which is that you take, play your knight to B4 and then C5. This is a very typical way to play against pawn to D4 ideas. But no, Fabi goes bishop D7 and Pragg is very happy to jump in to G3 with his knight. If you look at this position, this is kind of the position that Pragg was aiming for. Caruana has to remain careful because Pragg can slowly start putting pressure with bishop D3, attacking the B5 pawn, and he jumps knight A5. A very good move because he's planning to come to C5, C4. Also, maybe C5 move is on the cards. And Pragg now thinking about what he ought to do in this position. He goes pawn to B3, trying to create some counterplay on the queen side, taking into control the C4 square. Fabi can take here on B3. Instead, he comes back to C6. Basically saying that I'm kind of piling up the pressure on D4. Maybe I want to go B4 in order to weaken this structure which you have played B3 with. But can Pragg actually win a pawn here? Pawn takes, bishop takes. Seems unlikely that Fabi would blunder such a pawn, but it's worth noticing that does this work or not? Because Pragg, let's say he takes it, by the way. He takes the pawn takes, and now do not take this pawn, Pragg, because if you take, then, he takes it. That's a mistake. And Fabi is surprised. He's like, Pragg, why did you do this? Because now knight D4 is just coming in. It's a very strong move. and he takes it. Knight takes d4. And the point, of course, is if you take back, you lose the bishop. If you take on d7, I have the intermediate knight f3, queen f3, and now very importantly, not queen d7 because of bishop h6, but knight d7, and black is clearly for choice. So knight d4 should come out of the blue for Pragg, or maybe he's missed some small nuance further down the line, but whatever it is, his position is now not so great. Out of the opening, he had a small edge. Pawn takes pawn, taken. And now Caruana clearly better. He can simply take the bishop on a4. Just thinking about it. Maybe there is bishop takes a4 possible here. So he takes queen d3. The queen comes up to d3. And now black can take on d4. So the way in which black can consolidate his advantage is after takes. He does it. He takes here, Pragg takes, and now d5 would be very strong. But instead, he goes knight d7. d5 move was perhaps taking advantage of this pin on the e file. But knight d7, slightly passive here. One must feel it, because knight e5, yes, he wants to get his knight on e5 or c5, but white would get the knight to f5. The bishop would be well positioned. The queen is also nicely placed. Here, suddenly Pragg's position looks full of venom here. He has some more time on the clock. Plays bishop to b2. And he jumps to e5 with the knight. The queen comes back to e2. And now maybe d5 once again, because you make use of this rook against the queen position. But Fabi goes bishop d7, slightly passive there, but he wants to control the f5 square, understandably, because knight f5, maybe he can chop off one of the knights there. Pragg has a few options in his hand. He would love to start rolling his a pawn, but for now it's not so easy. He goes knight df5. And Fabi goes king h7. He could have actually played g6 directly, because after knight h6, king h7, it's completely good for black to play such a position. But after king h7, he is preparing g6, but Pragg goes king h1. And this is going to get wild now, because when Fabi goes g6 to kick this knight out, Pragg is going to go f4. And the question is, who's going to be hurt more with all the mess that is created on the center and on the king side? I think it's black who's going to be in trouble, because his king looks more exposed here. Fabi does go g6. And Pragg doesn't need a second invitation for this. He pushes his pawn to f4, attacking the knight on e5. Now the knight has to move away. Wonder where the knight will go. Maybe knight c6 is one move. But there's also g takes f5 possible. And right now, Fabi takes on f5. Pragg's going to take back fe5. And now maybe there are moves like queen g5 to attack the knight, or queen h4, but goes f4. And this is a big mistake. This is a big mistake. The reason for that is now knight to h5. And it looks simple. There's a check coming in, but of course black's going to take back the pawn. And here you have this rooks coming on the d file. Which rook to place is also a question, because black rook is attacking the pawn on a2. So rook e d1 seems more logical, threatening to take and then check and win the queen even. King g6 needs to be calculated, and this is actually very, very intense here. So Pragg is calculating all of this with knight jumping to h5, but he also has another option, which is to push his pawn to e6. Attacking the bishop, let's say you take back with the bishop, and now knight h5 with the bishop having opened up. So these two options, very, very juicy, both of them. Which one to take, which one to not take. Also with e6, maybe there's an additional option to take. Pragg goes knight h5. Brilliant. He finds the best move, and of course Fabi now needs to take the pawn on e5. He cannot really continue with normal moves here. Knight h5, d5 is possible, because knight f6 is a big threat. And Praggnanandhaa now like looking super confident. He has 43 seconds. Fabi has a little bit more time on the clock. He's trying to observe what he can do. He takes the pawn, rook a d1 and rook e6 played. Now very quickly, look at this tactic. Rook takes d7, queen takes d7, queen g4. Mate and knight f6 threatened, but Pragg finds another tactic. Bishop e5. What a move, because if rook e5, rook d7, queen d7, knight f6 check, and you win the queen. So very interesting move here. Also a very strong move by Praggnanandhaa. And Fabi doesn't have much to do. These threats of queen g4, knight f6 check, rook d7 are so crippling for him. His position is going to fall apart. Queen e7 and now rook d7 is still winning with this idea of queen g4, which is so powerful with knight f6 coming up. And Fabi is hoping to survive here with 3 seconds. Bishop f6 played. He goes queen e8. Hardly has any time on the clock. Queen g4 and trying to stop the mate, but drops a piece. He takes the pawn on a2, but queen f5 check, and it's game over. Fabiano resigns and Praggnanandhaa scores an important win. Pragg is of course the man of tie breaks, managing to beat Fabi, but the job is still incomplete. He has to play Wesley So next, and we'll see if Pragg manages to win that and win the Sinquefield Cup.